After a single night, she tried to quit it. Unexpectedly, he revealed his incredible love for her. Sarah stared blankly at the stacks of case files on her desk, a chaotic mountain that mirrored her disheveled thoughts. Every day felt like a suffocating cycle, as if she were pushing against an impenetrable wall of privilege and entitlement. Her colleagues, graced by their upper-class backgrounds, strolled through the firm with an air of authority, casually dissecting her ideas and presenting them as their own. She had once dreamed of being a lawyer. Now, those dreams felt like distant stars, beautiful but unreachable in her small Midwestern town where ambition often met an immovable barrier. That week had been particularly brutal. On top of the usual grind, she'd spent hours preparing a brief she was certain would impress Mr. Reynolds, the firm's lead partner. Exhausted and on the verge of tears, she watched as he patted Jason on the back for a presentation that had merely regurgitated her points. At that moment, raw frustration clawed at her throat. Who was she kidding? She was just a paralegal, the invisible woman who bent over backwards only to remain unseen. Defeated, she decided to quit. The thought itself was liberating. But as she sat in the booth of the diner that evening, cooling coffee replacing the once heated ambition within her, the decision felt weighty, like a stone anchored in her chest. She flinched at her reflection in the window. Adrift, she questioned her worth. Her mind spiraled. Maybe she wasn't cut out for this world, didn't belong here. Just as she was about to drown in her own sorrow, David appeared. His weathered face, etched with lines of wisdom, approached her table. He didn't need to ask about her decision to leave. His eyes reflected understanding. "You've got a fire inside, Sarah," he said, his voice a mixture of concern and encouragement. "Why throw that away?" And that's when the floodgates opened. With trembling lips, Sarah confessed her feelings of inadequacy, the crushing weight of invisibility suffocating her spirit. "I pour my heart into this job, but no one sees me. I feel so lost," she admitted, the tremor in her voice betraying the confidence she tried to project daily. "Trust me, I see it," David responded, leaning forward, passion glimmering in his eyes. He began to share his tale of overcoming class barriers, battling indifference, and carving out a place in an industry that had always felt foreign. His unwavering support lit a small flame within her, awakening a passion that had dimmed amidst the dull monotony of mediocrity. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As they strategized together about their cases, a bond blossomed, intellectual yet tinged with unspoken feelings below the surface. But along with that bond came the undeniable pressure of potential conflict. Choosing this path could mean facing hostility from her colleagues. Would she dare to stand up for herself? Could she chase these dreams that began to feel tantalizingly real? And what if that meant risking the comfort of familiarity? Suddenly, an unexpected confrontation with Jason sent her spiraling. He approached her with an ultimatum: back down or watch her efforts go unrecognized, her dreams sidelined. And just when Sarah stood on the precipice of decision, tension crackled in the air. She turned to David, seeking his reassurance, and saw uncertainty mirrored back in his eyes. The clock felt like it was ticking down on her dream, and all Sarah could do was hold her breath, waiting for the impending storm. Would she have the strength to leap into the unknown? Confronted by Jason's aggressive ultimatum, Sarah felt her heart pound against her chest, a physical rush of fear and exhilaration. She'd often read about pivotal moments in people's careers, but never imagined she would be thrown into one herself, forced to make a choice that could redefine her professional path. It was remarkable how one person could so easily strip away another's hard work and confidence. Yet here she was, on the brink, looking into the abyss. What did behind the veneer of that aggression lay? Insecurity? A distorted sense of hierarchy that diminished her worth in the eyes of their peers? Maybe Jason felt threatened by her growing bond with David, a pairing that could reshape the internal dynamics of the firm. At that moment, she recognized that Jason's attack was as much about her as it was about him. If anything, it illuminated her burgeoning strength, a light that had begun to flicker against the oppressive weight of invisibility. "Are you really going to let this bully dictate your future?" her inner voice probed, echoing the encouragement David had instilled in her. The anchor of her self-doubt weighed heavier than before, but so did a bubbling intensity, a will to fight back that she had suppressed for too long. Without fully knowing how she arrived at this moment, she found herself standing tall, meeting Jason's eyes directly with fierce determination. "I won't back down," she declared, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. The words felt foreign at first, but quickly morphed into a lifeline she could grasp. In response, Jason hesitated, caught off guard. It was the split second of surprise she needed to shift the dynamics. "You may have the backing of this firm, but it doesn't mean I'm going to sit silently while you hijack my work," she continued, each sentence a building block of newfound self-assurance. The onlookers in the office paused, a collective tension in the air, as if they were waiting for the result of a high-stakes game. This wasn't just about her. It became a battle of wills, a daring attempt to assert her value. Despite the intimidation, she began to recognize her capability to influence and alter perceptions beyond what she had once thought possible. After the confrontation and in the quiet aftermath, a surge of clarity washed over her. She needed to carve out her own identity, separate from the environment that had diminished her spirit. But how? David's voice echoed in her mind. Strategy, planning, research. Taking the initiative to confront Jason head-on sparked another idea. What if she tackled the challenge with an even greater mastery of her professional skills? That evening, Sarah immersed herself in the details of the brief she had worked so hard to finalize. The case sat unfinished in her mind like an unsolved puzzle, but the pieces were beginning to fall into place. With David's mentorship in her corner, she picked up the phone, reaching out to potential witnesses and contacts she had stored away in her notes. She would fortify her case. No longer would she depend solely on others to see her work. As she dove deeper into research, she felt exhilaration mingled with anxiety. The clock was ticking, and she needed to produce something impressive that would validate her position. When morning light filtered through her window, it brought not just a new day, but a resolve she had never held before. She stepped out with intention. Jason may have summoned an ultimatum, but she was ready to flip the narrative. The overlooked paralegal was now gearing up to show her colleagues her true mettle. But would her determination hold against Jason's intimidating tactics? What if he retaliated in ways she hadn't anticipated? Her pulse quickened at the thought of the unpredictable nature of professional gamesmanship. With the office looming ahead of her, a powerful wave of uncertainty, tinged with excitement, surged through her veins. The moment of truth would arrive soon, and with her heart racing, she recognized that this was more than a professional challenge. It was a revelation of self. Would she be the architect of her destiny, or merely a bystander in her own life? As she approached her office door, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that the real battle was just beginning. As Sarah stepped into the office, the weight of her resolve crashed into her with the soft hum of the fluorescent lights above. The atmosphere felt different. There was a fuel in the air, charged with unspoken tension and the anticipation of confrontation. Recognizing her new sense of purpose, she adjusted her posture, a small step that felt monumental. The question loomed: could she maintain this momentum through the day, or would the shadows of self-doubt creep back in? She found her desk cluttered with remnants of unfinished projects waiting for her. Attention. Yet the mess didn't overwhelm her today. Instead, it invigorated her. Each document represented a chance to build a narrative, to stitch together the threads of her own professional identity amidst the chaos Jason had attempted to sow. She shifted her focus to the brief that had sparked her initial contention with him, the case that wasn't just another assignment, but her first declaration of independence. A plan unfolded in her mind. Sarah compartmentalized her tasks. First, she would finalize the research she had begun the previous night, honing in on every detail that could fortify her argument. It was time to effectively communicate her hard work, to turn her observations into strength rather than remain a silent witness to her own diminishing relevance. She meticulously organized her notes, determined to leave no stone unturned. As she navigated complex legal articles and annotations, the content itself felt like a puzzle, an elaborate game she was finally equipped to tackle. With each page she reviewed, her confidence bloomed further. But as the morning wore on, Jason's presence loomed large in her mind. Would he underestimate her efforts again? Would he dismiss her contributions as he had done in the past? These thoughts filled her with a prickling dread, but it was a dread she started to harness. What if she could outsmart him? What if she became precisely what he feared, a competent force capable of lifting her work above the mundane and into the extraordinary? Just as she began to formulate her arguments, the pounding of heels echoed down the hallway. Jason was approaching. A brief chill rushed through her. This was it, the moment he would attempt to reassert his dominance. "Sarah," he called, his voice slicing through the office noise like a knife. He approached with an air of authority, the same confident stride as before, yet today felt different. And so did she. Looking up to meet his gaze, she saw the familiar smirk spreading across his face. "I hope you haven't wasted too much time on this case. Remember, staying out of my way is in your best interest." She felt a spark ignite within her, sharper than any previous moment of intimidation. "I'll be delivering my report on the timeline we agreed upon." There was a steadiness in her tone, surprising even to herself. "And what if I say otherwise?" he countered, stepping a little too close, challenging her in that subtle way he always did. But today, his proximity didn't feel oppressive. Instead, it felt combustible, and Sarah sensed an opportunity pulsing beneath the tension. "You can try, but you might find that having a new insight from me might just be the missing link you'll be looking for." His eyes flickered, a blend of confusion and irritation momentarily revealing a crack in his facade. "You're pushing your luck, Sarah." "What you see as pushing, I see as presenting an opportunity," she replied, crossing her arms defiantly. There it was, a shift in the dance between them, a deft, subtle exchange that hinted at both the professional stakes at play and the personal battleground that had formed beneath their exchanges. But as she turned away, a sliver of doubt crept in. Could she maintain her ground against his habitual insidiousness? Was this newfound confidence strong enough to withstand the storm she had ignited? As Sarah turned to her computer, preparing to delve back into her work, her thoughts raced. She needed a backup plan, and she needed it fast. David's mentorship and the strength she had drawn from her confrontation gnawed at her inner landscape. But what if this retaliation came with consequences she hadn't anticipated? Her determination resolved into clarity. She knew it was time to prepare for the unexpected, even if Jason had a few tricks left up his sleeve. The battlefield was drawn, and the next move was hers. Would she complete the foundation she needed to stand tall against an opponent who thrived on undermining? Or would she risk all she had fought for, stepping into a vulnerable space she could no longer afford? With every keystroke, the stakes began to feel even higher, and Sarah realized that the unraveling of her professional identity had merely begun. What lay ahead could redefine everything she believed to be true about herself. The clarity Sarah had felt seconds before began to wane as the moments dragged on. Each tick of the clock echoed against her resolve, reminding her of Jason's presence lurking just beyond her workspace. She clenched her jaw, pushing the unease down. Stability was her newfound ally, and she would defend it fiercely. How had she allowed herself to feel so unsure in the past? Today was the day where conviction would reign, not uncertainty. She dove deep into her research, piecing together arguments that could challenge Jason's frequently dominant narratives. The legal framework surrounding her case was intricate, filled with nuances he often exploited. Yet she began to recognize the threads he overlooked, the opportunities for innovation and critical insight embedded in the details. Her confidence solidified with every clever hypothesis she articulated in her notes. But thoughts of confrontation lingered, a relentless undercurrent pulling at her focus. She could feel Jason's eyes on her, carrying a weight meant to intimidate. She resisted the urge to glance at him, firmly redirecting her energy into the task that lay ahead. This was not merely a report, it was a blueprint for her future in this field. Failure was no longer acceptable. Midway through her second coffee, Sarah received a ping on her computer, a notification to join a meeting. Team update, status of case files, it read. A chilling sense of foreboding settled over her. Naturally, Jason would use this as an opportunity to undermine her publicly. He thrived in these environments, feeding off the energy of questioning minds and hesitant voices. Taking a deep breath, Sarah opened her presentation slides. There would be no half measures. Standing up in front of her colleagues, she didn't just want to present. She needed to leave an impression. Her trembling fingers steadied as she clicked to begin. Would she have the courage to stand firm before Jason's inevitable pushback? As everyone settled into their seats, Jason's keen eye caught hers. A silent game of dominance played out in subtle glances. Her heart raced. Was she prepared for this? Then David entered the room, offering her a brief nod of encouragement. His presence was a soft anchor amidst her rising tide of doubt, a reminder that she wasn't entirely alone. "We'll start with the case developments from Sarah," Jason announced with a slight disdain, his tone belittling yet laced with curiosity. She squared her shoulders, focusing on the screen, her pulse quickening. She opened her mouth, letting the words flow. "Here's the outline I've prepared on the key findings and next steps." The words came, informed and insightful, each slide revealing her research intricately woven with carefully calculated insights and strategic foresight. The questions started rolling in. "Can you explain your reasoning behind your approach?" The moment Jason leaned forward to question her, a sharp intake of breath filled the silence. But this time it felt different to Sarah. His usual derision was muted, swallowed by intrigue. She answered him confidently, robustly justifying her points, and each time he pressed, she countered with clarity and precision. Fear transformed into conviction, and she sensed the shift in energy. By the end of her presentation, a tangible shift rippled through the room. Someone began to applaud, and soon the sound crescendoed. Jason's expression was inscrutable, a mask of surprise veiling emotions she dared not decipher. As she returned to her seat, adrenaline coursed through her, revitalizing her spirit. She had navigated that treacherous terrain and emerged more than intact. She had grown. The meeting rolled into the next topic, but her mind raced ahead. What if Jason had underestimated her completely? What if this moment turned the tide of their relationship? There was a subtle thrill in not just surviving, but thriving. And suddenly, Sarah entertained the notion that maybe she was capable of not just facing her adversary, but even discovering the respect hidden beneath their animosity. But as she gathered her things to leave, the weight of Jason's earlier comment returned, chewing at her newfound confidence. Had he been playing a deeper game all along? What if this unexpected potential to transform her professional identity came with equally unexpected costs? With the echoes of applause still lingering, she realized the next move was more crucial than ever. How far would she need to go to solidify her ground against Jason? The stakes were escalating, and she was just beginning to comprehend the complexity of her own ambitions. Would she continue uncovering the hidden facets of herself, or risk exposing vulnerabilities that could unravel her growth? The next day promised even greater challenges, and Sarah knew she needed to brace for what lay ahead. The next morning, Sarah arrived at the office with a tumult of thoughts swirling through her mind. The applause from yesterday's meeting echoed faintly in her ears, but was swiftly drowned out by the apprehension lurking at the edges of her mind. What if her moment of victory was merely fleeting? She resolved to build on that momentum instead of letting it slip away. As she settled in, the weight of the day ahead loomed over her like a storm cloud. She recalled Jason's inscrutable expression, how he leaned back, arms crossed, instead of launching into a verbal assault as he usually did. Had he reconsidered his approach? Determined to gauge the dynamics, Sarah drafted a quick email to David, hoping to discuss her next steps. His feedback had been valuable in the past, and this time she needed an ally who could help fortify her resolve. Yet, as she hit send, doubts crept back in. What if her need for validation from her peers revealed an inherent weakness? Embracing that thought, she redirected her focus to her work. She began outlining the next legal strategies for her case. Inspiration sparked as she delved into intricate legal nuances, recognizing how the personal stakes intertwined with professional ambition. With every point she drafted, she felt a twinge of control returning to her life. Each sentence a declaration that she was meant to be here. Suddenly, Jason's voice broke her concentration. "Sarah, can we have a quick chat?" It wasn't a request, but an assertion, punctuated by his confident stride across the office. Her stomach dropped, every instinct warning her to brace herself. Instead of evading, she shook off her apprehensions. This was her moment to not just respond, but engage actively. "Sure, Jason," she replied, perhaps with more assurance than she felt, gesturing toward a quiet corner of the office. As they sat, a silence stretched before them, thick and fraught with implications. She could see Jason sizing her up, weighing the extent of his usual authority against her newfound resilience. "You performed well yesterday, surprisingly well," he started, masking admiration beneath a veil of critique. "Thank you," she replied, keeping her tone steady. She refused to allow nervousness to creep into her words, choosing instead to embrace the opportunity for dialogue. "I'm hoping to leverage my findings for upcoming cases. Do you have suggestions on how I can strengthen my position?" This unexpected shift disarmed Jason momentarily, and she sensed a subtle change in him. It was no longer a game of dominance. Now it felt like a collaboration. "You are going to need evidence, Sarah," he replied, every word crisp with intent. "What you presented isn't enough for the higher-ups. They want results, concrete proof of your assertions. Tread carefully. They don't believe in flames without proof." His warning resonated deeply. Questions flickered in her mind. Was Jason genuinely looking out for her, or was this yet another play to regain leverage? She chose to take him at his word, recognizing that this was a chance to prove herself further. Not just to the team, but to herself. Focus shifted instantly, leaving fear in the past. Later that afternoon, her cell buzzed with David's reply. He suggested an angle she hadn't yet considered, an underused precedent that might bolster her argument. The adrenaline surged again. Maybe she could turn this case into something groundbreaking. Feverishly, Sarah began to draft notes, her concentration sharp, her determination setting ablaze new ideas. Yet, lurking beneath the excitement, the question remained, was her newfound strength about to face another test? The intricacies of office politics had a way of shifting tides unexpectedly. That evening, Jason approached her again, this time with a less guarded demeanor. "You're growing," he stated matter-of-factly, "but don't get too comfortable." His eyes held a mix of challenge and something else she couldn't quite place. As she watched him walk away, a realization dawned. He might be a formidable opponent, yet undiscovered potential flickered between them. It could either lead to a deeper rivalry or a surprising alliance. Sarah felt the weight of not just navigating her ambitions, but also an intricate dance of trust and caution developing. Where would this newfound strength lead her? Could she forge a path of her own, charting a course through the complexities of professional relationships without losing her sense of self? The question sat heavy in her mind, leaving trails of uncertainty. She would need to act swiftly and navigate the waters ahead with both conviction and discernment. The next chapter of her journey awaited, and she would not shy away from the challenges it presented. Would she cement her place as a formidable force, or unravel under the weight of expectations? As dawn broke, the city pulsed with a fresh energy, but for Sarah, the weight of her thoughts threatened to overshadow the new day. Armed with Jason's cryptic endorsement and David's promising lead, she felt the daunting task ahead of her, extracting solid evidence from a complex legal landscape. Determined to meet the challenge head-on, she arrived at the office with a sense of purpose that she had yearned for throughout her career. Ideas bubbled beneath the surface. The underused precedent David had pointed out transformed into a full-blown strategy in her mind, each facet of her plan demanding articulation. Settling into her workspace, she rifled through documents, searching diligently for cases that echoed the nuanced points raised in her findings. Her hands moved instinctively over the keyboard, assembling arguments that were compelling and precise. With the adrenaline fueling her creativity, Sarah immersed herself in legal texts. Each citation, each case study contributed to a growing sense of empowerment, and she felt the landscape of her aspirations morphing into a viable path forward. Amid her frenzy of drafting, her cell buzzed again. Another message from David appeared. Sarah's heart skipped. She was eager for feedback, but wary of his expectations. "Let's meet for coffee later. I want to see what you've come up with," the text read, offering both invitation and scrutiny. "Sure," she replied, her palms slightly sweaty as she contemplated the possibility of facing more scrutiny. The blend of excitement and apprehension sharpened her focus. She pushed the doubt aside, vowing to present her case confidently. Later that afternoon, she arrived at the cafe, a place drenched in casual elegance. David was already seated, a serious expression etched on his face. "Sarah, you've been making waves," he began after a brief exchange of pleasantries. "I think there's real potential here. But," his tone shifted, the cautious reality of the conversation settling in, "you need to be prepared for pushback. Some partners are resistant to change." Her stomach churned. "What do you suggest?" His brows furrowed as he spoke, each word a deliberate choice. "Presenting your findings with undeniable support is key. If you can foreground this precedent firmly, it'll make a fortress around your arguments." Her pulse quickened. "Okay, I'd like to outline a presentation that emphasizes this. I believe if I approach it strategically, I can sway them." David nodded slowly, approval spurking in his eyes. "Consider engaging with Jason again. You two have an unexpected rapport. Use it." The idea struck her as simultaneously thrilling and terrifying. Jason had been a source of both inspiration and tension. His insights could bolster her confidence, but also amplify the stakes. Balancing their dynamic required finesse. She couldn't afford missteps. On her way back to the office, self-doubt flickered once more. Was she merely playing into Jason's game? Alternatively, could she truly cultivate a collaborative relationship, turning him from a rival into an ally? The maze of her thoughts gave rise to a whirlwind of possibilities, each more complicated than the last. As she settled back into her workspace, determination battling with anxiety, she resolved to confront Jason again. The thought empowered her. She would present a strategy that not only illustrated her strengths, but also established boundaries. The hours passed in a blur, culminating in a meticulously crafted presentation. Each slide, each argument was sharpened to a sheen, reflecting not just her ability, but her resolve to carve her future. As the day waned, Sarah caught sight of Jason approaching her desk, an unreadable look on his face. It was now or never. "Jason, I've made some significant breakthroughs. I think we should discuss integrating our efforts. You might have insights that could elevate my strategy." He raised an eyebrow, curiosity flickering amidst the usual guardedness. She noted the slight shift in his posture, the hesitation that spoke volumes, a glimpse of potential collaboration on the horizon. "Okay, let's see what you've got," he replied, an air of challenge mixed with intrigue. The stakes had transformed yet again. Sarah felt the electric pulse of opportunity merge with apprehension. Could this moment forge the alliance she needed, or was it a prelude to deeper conflict? As they began discussing her presentation, the tension coiled between them, a blend of professional ambition and uncharted emotions. Would her renewed strength crystallize through this partnership, or would the complexities of their relationship ignite new conflicts? The next moment would uncover the answer, and she had no intention of retreating from it. The atmosphere in the office hummed with latent energy as Sarah and Jason dove into the presentation. The initial rhythm of their conversation quickly shifted from tentative exchanges to an unspoken understanding of their merger of ideas. The tension morphed, creating a palpable spark that ignited Sarah's once dormant instincts for collaboration. "Your approach on slide 3 is solid," Jason noted, his tone edged with genuine admiration. "But let's angle it toward how it impacts our core values. Aligning with what the partners care about might be key." "Right," Sarah replied, her thoughts racing. "If I can frame it around their priorities, it's not just about precedence, it works to elevate their motivations." As Sarah reformulated her points, the reality of their dynamic unfolded before her. Curiosity mingled with their professional dance, and she found herself intrigued not just by the substance of their conversation, but by the man himself. Jason was sharp, precise, and there was an undeniable chemistry simmering beneath their collaborative strain, a duality that both excited and bewildered her. Yet, beneath her growing confidence, an unsettling turbulence festered. Would further engagement risk blurring professional boundaries? She wrestled internally with the notion of vulnerability. The thought of inadequacy crept stealthily into her mind. Could she maintain her grip on authority while feeling this inexplicable pull toward him? "Let's take a break and regroup in a moment," Jason suggested, cutting through her internal debate. As they stepped outside, the late afternoon sun warmed Sarah's skin, momentarily washing away the lingering doubts. They found a quiet corner away from the bustling office, easing back against the cool brick wall. "So, what's really driving you, Sarah?" Jason's voice was low, but it carried a weight that anchored her. "You're not just looking to win over the partners. There's more at stake for you, isn't there?" Surprised by his insight, she found herself caught. Sarah could sense the raw honesty in his inquiry. It was both disarming and illuminating. "I suppose I've always wanted to establish my own path. I've felt stagnant in past roles, and this opportunity feels like a breakthrough." She exhaled, casting glances away as if to sever the moment. But Jason held her gaze with unyielding interest. "Stagnation can breed frustration, but it can also force you to find your voice," he mused thoughtfully. "Perhaps that's why we're drawn to this project. There's a fire in you that's undeniable." His words set off a rush of adrenaline. She hadn't anticipated this conversation veering into the personal, yet here they were, two architects of ambition hovering on the precipice of something distinctly profound. "You're right," she admitted softly, emboldened by their exchange. "I think that's exactly what I'm after, both professionally and personally, a shift." Jason stepped closer, a hint of vulnerability lacing his demeanor. "I get that. Randomly aligning with someone like you has sparked something I hadn't expected." "It's refreshing." For a moment, they lingered in the connection that grew in the air, a potential imbued with unspoken options. Sarah felt a tumult of emotions, the dizzying potential of collaboration giving way to something more introspective. Could this shared ambition morph into an undeniable partnership? "I guess we find ourselves hoping for the same thing then," she said, her voice thicker with tension. But the spell broke abruptly as they returned to the office, the stakes redefined but cloaked in uncertainty. With their collaborative spirit ignited, Sarah felt a renewed urgency, a drive to present a united front that harnessed both their strengths. She knew she had to act decisively. Now, with the looming presentation ahead, could they navigate the pitfalls that lay ahead of their mutual aspirations while maintaining a clear vision of their paths? The tension crackled anew as the hour for their revelation approached, leaving Sarah to ponder what would ultimately emerge, a triumphant strategy or a complicated mess of their intertwined ambitions. The moment of truth was drawing near, and she would face it head-on. As the final minutes before the presentation ticked down, Sarah's mind spiraled in a flurry of thoughts. Her palms were damped with anticipation, not only about the proposal itself, but also about the intricate relationship that had begun to develop with Jason. The stillness of the conference room felt stifling as she weighed her options. Could they sustain this newfound energy under the watchful eyes of the partners? Her heart raced. Was this moment about her professional evolution, or was it veering dangerously close to something more intimate? The line between collaboration and personal connection blurred, and that uncertainty gnawed at her. Focusing on the slides didn't quell her anxiety. Instead, each cliched graphic and chart only served to underscore how critical this pitch was for her career. "Sarah, can we run through our key points one last time?" Jason's voice broke through her mounting confusion. His calm demeanor contrasted with the storm inside her, as if he were anchored while she floated adrift. "Absolutely," she nodded, swallowing hard. "Let's review the numbers. I'll lead with the impact on our client satisfaction scores, then you can flow into the enhancement of operational efficiency." As she spoke, the familiar strength rushed back into her voice, pushing aside the doubts that had plagued her moments earlier. There it was again, the clarity she'd been seeking, the realization that this project was more than just a professional endeavor. It was, for her, a means to claim her voice, to become the decisive force she had always aspired to be. "This is a pivotal moment for us," Jason interjected, a spark in his eyes. "If we position this effectively, the partners won't just see the numbers, they'll feel the passion behind our analysis." She watched him intensely, marveling at how seriously he treated their collaboration. The sincerity in his approach ignited a flicker of hope within her. Perhaps this was the partnership she was searching for, one unafraid of boundaries, yet respectful of ambitions. But as the time drew closer, a new layer of complexity revealed itself. Deep-seated insecurities about her ability to command respect in a male-dominated field flooded her mind. Was the chemistry she felt a distraction, or could it reinforce their professional respect? This was uncharted territory, and with each passing second, the risks magnified. "Let's bring this home," she finally said, rallying her resolve. "We know our strengths. Let's trust in that." Jason smiled, the warmth of his approval bolstering her confidence. Together, they took a deep breath, a synchronized acknowledgement of what lay ahead and what they stood to gain, or lose. Stepping into the conference room, they merged into a single unit, ready to face the panel of partners. As they set up their presentation, Sarah caught herself looking at Jason, their eyes locking for a moment that stretched into eternity. What transpired between them in that one glance ignited an intoxicating mix of ambition and uncertainty. As the first partner cleared his throat to begin, Sarah's heart thumped in her ears. She could feel the moment teetering on a precipice. Her ambitions were layered with the risk of emotional vulnerability. Would the presentation reflect her professional capacity, or would it expose the fragile new connection she had with Jason? The breathos of her inhibitions fluttered dangerously close to the edge. The stakes were higher than ever, and uncertainty whispered through her. What she would not only achieve as a professional, but also what she might lose as a person, hung in the balance. "All right, let's get to work," she thought, pushing herself forward. But as the meeting commenced, a sudden realization gripped her. This engagement was not just work, It was an irrevocable step toward a complex relationship that could redefine everything. Whatever came next, it wouldn't just be about the partner's approval, but about her acceptance of the unscripted journey that lay ahead, a journey that felt electric and unpredictable, drawing her nearer to Jason while pushing her to confront the depth of her own desires. And as the first question arose, Sarah braced herself for what was undeniably a crossroads moment. Could passion coexist with professionalism, or would she have to sacrifice one for the other? As the presentation unfolded, Sarah fought to maintain her composure. Each question posed by the partners seemed heavier than the last, amplifying the weight of expectation resting firmly on her shoulders. She could feel Jason beside her, a reassuring presence, as he expertly navigated complex queries, his confidence a balm for her frayed nerves. Yet the connection they shared, a melding of professional respect and something unmistakably personal, fleetingly cast shadows on her focus. At one point, while discussing their proposal's projected outcomes, Sarah noticed a glimmer of recognition in Jason's eyes. It mirrored her own flicker of ambition, igniting a charge that pulsed between them, transcending the limits of the conference room. She envisioned future possibilities, not just for their project, but for their burgeoning partnership. It was an exhilarating notion, and in that moment, she found herself wishing the meeting would never end. But when the partners began exchanging skeptical glances, the fleeting euphoria faded, replaced by a sense of foreboding. Their whispers, much like her own doubts, reverberated like a drumbeat in the back of her mind. Did she really belong here? Questions around her qualifications and capabilities resurfaced, thundering in contrast to the hope ignited by Jason's presence. As they wrapped up the presentation, the atmosphere in the room thickened with tension. Sarah sensed the partners' misgivings. Their skepticism was palpable, each lingering silence an indictment of her abilities. The last comment from one of the partners, a remark tinged with condescension, harvested the seeds of her deeper insecurities. Sarah's mind spiraled, grasping at the edges of her professional identity, fighting against old narratives that told her she was not enough. "Now, we'll take a break," the lead partner announced, attempting to diffuse the tension in the air. With the room's energy shifting, Sarah excused herself, stepping into a quieter corner of the hallway. The cool air felt foreign against the heat of her skin, bracing yet necessary. The moment of solitude offered a fleeting respite. Her thoughts raced as she reconsidered that fragile line between personal and professional, grappling with the realization that each represented a vulnerability she had curated for much of her life. "Why are you hesitating, Sarah?" she whispered to herself, squaring her shoulders as she reflected on the endless hours of hard work that had led her here. Though anxiety churned within, she felt a glimmer of irrefutable truth. Regardless of the partner's opinions, she had earned her place in this room. Unfamiliar with the interplay of emotions entwined with ambition, she faced an uncomfortable understanding. Perhaps addressing those doubts demanded embracing the very essence of who she was. Gathering herself, Sarah returned with renewed determination. Each step felt grounded, a fiery pulse propelling her forward with a newfound sense of purpose. She would not let fear define her. As the partners returned to their seats, she locked eyes with Jason. In that brief connection, unspoken words danced between them. It was a promise, a pact to steer where this journey would lead, unafraid of the consequences. They were allies in more ways than one, and that realization fortified her spirit. The questioning resumed, but this time Sarah faced it with relentless grit. She answered sharply, her insights sharp, and her passion evident. The energy in the room shifted. The partners began to lean in, intrigued by the conviction fueled by her vulnerability. But just as she stood poised to deliver the final persuasive argument, her cell phone buzzed in her pocket, a sudden alert that disrupted her focus. Glancing down, she saw a message pop up from an unknown number.
And what it stated set off a cascade of questions, crashing into her newly fortified resolve. What if that notification alters everything? She felt a piercing jolt of uncertainty. Would it be a bridge to clarity or a stumbling block threatening to unravel her painstaking progress? In that electrifying moment, as she wrestled with the implications of her next steps, she understood. Both her professional trajectory and personal evolution hinged on the choices she made now. Could this new challenge redefine her journey, or would it become yet another distraction? As Sarah glanced down at her phone, uncertainty flickered through her veins like wildfire. The notification was a reminder of a previous mentor, and a mentor who had offered her a position in another prestigious law firm, the opportunity she had once thought was merely a dream. Yet at this pivotal moment, standing before the partners and feeling the keen weight of Jason's supportive presence, she realized this was no longer just about a job. It was about her identity, her journey towards self-acceptance and claiming the career she had diligently worked for. "Focus, Sarah. You are in control," she muttered under her breath, casting aside the notification with a wave of her hand. She turned her attention back to the conference room, the hesitant expressions from the partners morphing into attentive curiosity as she spoke with renewed vigor. Each question posed became a chance to demonstrate not just her competence, but her evolution, a powerful woman who had risen from the shadows, defying the odds stacked against her. "And so, if you consider the implications of these findings," Sarah continued, her voice unwavering, "we're not merely enhancing outputs or efficiencies, we're redefining how we, as a firm, engage with client expectations. This is the moment we establish ourselves as industry leaders, and I am more than prepared to back this up with measurable data." Jason's eyes sparkled with affirmation, and in that moment, a silent understanding formed between them. Where he once viewed her as an underdog, now he recognized her as an equal partner. The partners began to murmur their appreciation, fueling her further, advancing the momentum of her pitch into a crescendo of clarity and insight. 2 hours later, as the meeting concluded, Sarah felt an electrifying surge wash over her. One of the senior partners rose to speak again. "Your insights, Sarah, reflect a deep understanding of the business at play. It's not just your capabilities that impressed, it's your passion and resilience that brought this proposal to life. We will greenlight this project and trust you to lead it." "Thank you," Sarah replied, tasting the sweetness of vindication. She extended her gratitude genuinely, embracing her newfound standing amongst colleagues that had once overlooked her. As she turned to exit the room, Jason caught her eye, and she saw genuine respect reflected there. Outside the conference room, a rush of adrenaline coursed through her veins. She knew her achievements were not merely professional, they were personal, a significant step towards embracing her worth. No longer the invisible woman, she had sculpted her identity with every decision, proving that she could navigate through obstacles. That evening, Sarah found herself sitting at the diner where everything had begun, a place of realization and hope, a setting steeped in the turning of tides. As she stirred her coffee, she finally allowed herself to reflect. When David arrived to celebrate her victory, he noticed the change in her demeanor immediately. "You did it, didn't you? You owned that room." "I did," she said, beaming with pride. "And I'm leading the project. It's the start of something great for me." David's smile filled her with warmth. "I always believed in you. You were not cut out for invisibility, Sarah. This was only a matter of time." In that moment, Sarah felt genuine contentment, an approval that came from within herself. She understood that success was never merely about external validation. It lived in the space between self-doubt and self-affirmation. She had conquered her fears, evolved into a resilient lawyer, and carved out a clear path toward her aspirations. The road ahead would undoubtedly encounter twists and hurdles, but she was prepared to embrace each challenge. Within her was an unwavering sense of purpose, solid confidence illuminating her path. The world was vast, waiting for her diligence and insight without restraint. In closing, it was no longer about the title she held as a paralegal or a junior associate. She had emerged as someone worthy of recognizing her capabilities, someone who belonged, truly belonged, within the legal sphere. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, because your support is crucial. Comment below your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support, and don't wait even one more second to share. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.